Good day, everyone. Another message here for you today. Today's message is titled Believe in God. Today we're going to focus on believing in God and not ourselves. So many times we focus on us or our families or everything going on instead of God. This is not to be confused with my message where I was talking about, focusing on yourself or worrying about yourself. That's still important. We should be taking care of ourselves, but we also need to be focused on God. Because so many times we focus on our jobs, our careers, our families, the devil, other people, all these different things. But when you look at, the New Testament, the time of Jesus, the Pharisees were focused on the law and not on their relationship with God. On numerous occasions, they tried to catch Jesus in breaking the Mosaic law. They accused him of not following the Sabbath when he healed a man. That was not, I'm sure, and Jesus even said that was not the intention of that law, was to not do any good. It was not to do any work. So he's like, am I supposed to just let this guy continue to be afflicted and just go on about my day and try to find him tomorrow? I don't have tomorrow. I need to take care of this guy's needs today. One particular occasion, Jesus was asked, what was the greatest commandment? See, the Pharisees were trying to catch him up. Like, we can find him, breaking the law by saying something against the law. The greatest commandment is to love God, love others as ourselves. So we know that part when Jesus said that. We kind of lose the part where he says love yourself. We focus on the love others and love God, but he said as you love yourself. So you have to be loving yourself properly if you're going to showcase love to someone else. But you would think the greatest commandment, the way that we've Americanized and westernized, I should say, the Bible and Christianity, you would think the greatest commandment was to condemn those that don't believe that you do, the way that you do. You would think the greatest commandment was to condemn the homosexual. But he said no, love God, love yourself, and love others. And the thing about it is that none of these are any of the actual 10 commandments as we know them. See, we think that the commandments are just those 10, but it's not. When you study the Bible, you understand that there are 632 commandments. But if you follow these greatest commandments that Jesus laid out, you will not break any of the commandments. We need to believe in God and not ourselves. I had a moment with God one time. I was praying for a friend of mine. I don't remember the friend, and I don't remember what it was for. And God whispered in internally and said, "This is what I do. I heal the sick." And that was enough for me. The word says, and God is saying, "Test me in this." When I was younger, and I wanted people to really believe me, I would say, "Bet me." That's bet that I'm right. Because I really know this, and you think that you know. I actually know. So let's bet. Let's make a bet so I can get money off of knowing this. I can make money off of your ignorance. God has already told us that he would provide for us, and then to really hammer it home, he said, "Test me in this." So basically, in the younger Darren self, he was like, "Bet me in this." He was saying this in relation to opening up floodgates. God literally was saying, you're going to win so much that you're going to get tired of winning, like the president once said. But instead of testing God, we worry. We worry about our problems. Matthew 6, verse 31 through 33 says, "So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." So Jesus is saying that pagans are the ones that go around worrying and worrying and worrying. That's not what we're supposed to do. Just like your kids, when they ask you, "Are we going to eat today?" or "What's for dinner?" they ask these things that you've always provided for them. And it's kind of like, and I tell my kids every now and then when they ask me questions, I'm like, has there ever been a day where I didn't feed you? No, so don't ask me. Don't ask me, "Are we eating today?" Because you have a pattern of me showing you that I'm going to make sure that you get a meal today. But it says, do not worry. Be smart, make good choices, but don't worry. God's got you. We need to believe in God and not ourselves. but we are too busy worrying about being in the company of others. Psalm 84:10 says, "Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked." Imagine if we really, truly had this mindset. Dwelling in the tents of the wicked is something that some of us have been great at. We have a permanent spot in some people's tents. We need to dwell in a different place. Psalms 27:4 says, "One thing I ask of the Lord, this is what I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." We need to believe in God and not ourselves. We were given the gospel, but we ignore it. Well, we ignore the parts we don't like and don't want. We treat the gospel like trail mix. We take the parts that we like and we throw away the parts that we don't. The gospel is not water. It does not fit into your container. We should not be acting and looking like the world, especially when we have the word on the inside of us. Romans 12:1-2 says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." It's a good thing that our effort doesn't activate God. But who did Paul write the letters to? To churches. I always mention that a lot so that we always focus on trying to say that we're not worthy or trying to say that, focus on anybody else is erroneous when you look at the scriptures. Paul wrote these letters to churches to get them in order. So we are supposed to strive towards Christ, but we need correction to get there. We're too busy trying to correct the world instead of the church. Nowhere in the letter in any of these letters did he say to be subservient to your pastor or make sure your pastor is charismatic. It was to the entire church to get in order. Not just the members, not just the pastors. This is a process. It's not overnight. Ephesians 4, verse 20-24 says, "You, however, did not come to know Christ that way. Surely you heard of him and were taught in him in accordance with the truth that is Jesus. You were taught with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." New attitude, new self. That's what Paul says to the church in Ephesus. New attitude, new self. Be like God. This process is not happening overnight, though. It's why so many people leave the church. They convert when they are overthrown with emotion, whether it was a charismatic preacher or great music that tugs at your heart or a video that they played. When I worked for a parachurch organization, we used to get people to convert and confess their sins when we would show a video of the Passion of Christ. We would show the part where Jesus is getting beat with the cat o' nine tails. These teenagers' emotions would take over because they knew in their heart that they needed to change their lives. But then we would have an altar call, but then they would go right back to their lives with no discipleship. And this isn't me trying to bash on an organization or anything like that. That's not how Jesus talked. That's not how he converted people. That's not how any of the apostles did. They didn't just tug at their heartstrings and say, "All right, bye, go back to your life." We have to walk with people. But getting your heart and your mind lined up doesn't happen all the time, does it? I think all of us could write a doctoral thesis on how our hearts and minds don't line up all the time. Then, after we get our hearts and minds lined up, then we have to get our flesh in order. But people give their lives to the Lord and then go back to the very life that beat them up, that led them to the feet of Jesus. And the church just says, or some churches I should say, "See you next week. Make sure you bring some money too." But this walk takes a full life change. When I did gang prevention work in the city, and I'm not trying to run down my resume of work, you know that I'm not about that at all, but I'm just trying to share some experiences. When we would go to the meetings trying to convince these rich people to donate money to our cause, they would want to see numbers that would reflect the change for their investment. But there are no numbers in the kingdom. There's no percentages in the kingdom. There were young people that were in gangs that we were ministering to at 16, 17, 18 years old, and now they're in their late 20s and early 30s, and they are now recently recognizing the seeds that we planted over a decade ago. Paul wrote to Timothy that our job is to tell the truth to people and move away and let God do the work. But in our minds, we try to do it all. We want to plant the seed, water it, prune it, grow it, harvest it, all these different things. When we're just supposed to plant the seed of truth to people and let God grow it out. Or, if you don't want to do all that, we tell people to let people go back to their lives to get beat up again. We tell people, oh, God has a plan for your life. But we rarely tell people that their lives will probably become worse after they give their lives to the Lord. Because that's when some spiritual attacks are going to start happening. They might not have had any spiritual attacks happening before that. They convert and truly give their hearts to the Lord. That's when the attacks can start. Let's break this down to an example, and I love this example. Because this is why we have so many false conversions in the church. And because people aren't believing God. So, let's imagine a man is given a parachute while boarding a plane. The man is told that the parachute will improve his experience on this flight. He's told that the pilot has a plan for him. That's why he's given him this parachute. The man is excited, and he puts the parachute on. During the flight attendant ignores the man's request for a beverage. The man is sitting in the chair uncomfortable because parachutes are uncomfortable to sit in. He is uncomfortable and he is ignored. He feels that this was not what he was told. He asks the flight attendant for some coffee. She ignores him again and grabs coffee for another customer. While she is going to get the coffee for another customer, she spills the coffee on the man. He is upset. He feels that he was lied to. He looks for the person that told him that this parachute would improve his flight experience. He cannot find this person. He is uncomfortable, he is ignored, and he is in pain. In frustration, he takes the parachute off and says the benefits of the parachute were not real. That everything got worse when he put the parachute on. Has anyone ever felt uncomfortable, ignored, and in pain in this Christian walk? So let's revisit this scenario, because that's the metaphor of a false conversion. The same man, as he boards the plane, he is told that he will need this parachute because at some point while he is at 30,000 feet, he will need to jump off this plane. They tell him at some point during the flight, you will need this on this plane because the plane's not going to make it, so you need to jump off. The man is scared, yet he feels special that he is selected to have this safety. During this same flight, he is uncomfortable sitting in his seat, but he understands that being uncomfortable is necessary. He is ignored by the same flight attendant, but he isn't focused on being ignored. He has his sights set on the next event in his life, in his eternal life. He is uncomfortable and ignored, but he's not focusing on it. He knows that these things may happen. He's focusing on why he put the parachute on in the first place, because he doesn't believe in himself, he believes in the parachute. The flight attendant spills coffee on him and he's in pain. But again, he was never told that there won't be pain. He wasn't told that the parachute would fix his life. So many times American Christians are brought into the church like that first example of the parachute. But it's not a microwave gospel. It's a lifestyle change, not overnight. Paul was a learned man in the Bible. In today's time, he probably would have had numerous PhDs from the best theology schools money can buy. When he was converted, he didn't just go out and start preaching as the way that we feel that on his road to Damascus he fell, saw Jesus, and then immediately was preaching the gospel and then started writing all these letters. There was a 3-year period of him learning from Christ, having to relearn the true ways. It was not an overnight process. We need to believe in God and not ourselves. The parachute does the job whether you believe in it or not. God's power is there whether you believe in it or not. There was this popular song quite a few years ago, and in the chorus it asked, what is God to a non-believer? But the answer is simple. He's still God. His power is there whether you believe in it or not. You may not walk in His power. You may not walk in the blessings. You may not walk in it because you don't have that faith. But He's still there. He's a constant. We need to believe in God even when we are tired. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 16. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. I pray that you are being renewed day by day. Guys, I pray that through your belief in God, that you are being renewed day by day. Thank you all. You guys have a great week. Stay safe and be blessed. Bye.